Hello everyone, it is Bridget here from Bridget's Healthy Kitchen, wishing you a wonderful and warm day wherever you are. If it is currently winter in your part of your neck of the woods, I hope you're warm, I hope you're well, and I hope you're safe. It is definitely winter here in Sydney today. In fact, it is blowing a gale. I have my turtleneck on for the first time this winter season because it is absolutely freezing. But in saying that, when it feels cold like this, one of my absolute favorite things in the world to do is get into the kitchen, turn on the oven and start to do some baking. So we are doing a bit of a baking class today, and we will be using an ingredient that is very much abundant in the winter months, and that is a bit of a lemon. So we're doing a lemon tea loaf today, and I have to say it's my current favorite. I know I say that every time, but it literally is. It is delicious. If you're fond of Madeira cake, it's kind of got those flavors of Madeira cake, but it is more in a loaf form. But in saying that, you can have it as a loaf, or you can have it as a cake, a dessert style cake as well, because it's definitely sweet enough and it's amazing toasted, and it literally is incredible. So I'm really happy to be able to share this wonderfully healthy recipe with you guys today. Of course, gluten-free, sugar-free, it is dairy-free as well. It is also grain-free, so it's wonderfully low-carb, which is very exciting. So I will be, making a tea loaf with you guys today. I think it's time for you to come on down to my bench so we can get into the recipe. So come on down here and let's go for it. So the first thing that we want to think about when it comes to this particular tea loaf is we're gonna mix the dry ingredients together, and we're gonna mix the wet ingredients together separately. And because of course there's no gluten in this recipe, we don't have to worry about over mixing as well, which is very, very exciting. So I've just put my bowl onto my scales here. Really good idea to measure everything straight onto the scales and into a bowl, saves with washing up. So the first ingredient that I'm going to be using is a type of gluten-free flour. I am using, actually it's not even just a gluten-free flour, it is a grain-free flour as well. I'm using almond flour. You could also use almond meal, or if you don't want to have almonds, you can do another nut or seed flour of your choosing. And for this recipe, I'm going to be putting in 120 grams, which is about 4.2 ounces of our gluten-free flour. Now, in order for this to be full of great healthy fats, it is nice to be able to use a nut or a seed flour because you've got some really good healthy fats in there. So 120 grams or 4.2 ounces goes into there. We're also going to be adding in a little bit of oat flour. Now, there's a couple of ways that you can do this. You can either go out and you can purchase some already pre-ground oat flour. This was on special. I think it was like $1.60 a packet. That was half price, so it's normally going to cost you about $3.20, $3.50. There is 250 grams in here, and it's just basically just oats that they've ground down into make it a fine flour. But you know what else you can do, and I suggest you do it, is grab yourself one of these. This has got to be one of my most popular used bits of equipment in my house. It is a coffee or spice grinder. I use it to obviously grind up all my spices, and my coffee, but I also use it to make my own nut flours, seed flours, oat flour. So rather than paying, over nearly $3.50 for 250 grams, which is like half a pound of oat flour, you can buy a whole bag of oats. Cost you about $1.20, and using this, you make your own oat flour. So that's what I suggest you absolutely do, because you're going to be saving money, plus you also know exactly what's going in there. So I'm going to use this oat flour only because I bought it to show you guys. Otherwise, I'd make my own oat flour. And into our almond meal, we're going to be adding in 90 grams, which is 3 ounces of oat flour that ideally you make yourself, because it is easy once you have that spot. Like seriously, once you have a coffee or spice grinder, and they'll set you back 20 to 30 bucks, you start to save money because you get to make all your own things like this, which is so easy when you have that little machine. It is an absolute genius, absolute time and finance saver as well. So oat flour is now in there. We're going to do more dry ingredients. This time I'm going to be adding in some of our zero as sugar, so our pure erythritol, which you guys know will not spike blood glucose and will not raise insulin levels. So it's a really important ingredient for us to have. And we're going to be adding in 120 grams of, which is once again 4.2 ounces of our zero as sugar. And because it's zero, it means there's no calories, there's no fat. And you guys also know that our zero as sugar is 100% natural. It's not an artificial sweetener. It is a natural sweetener and it is wonderful. So 120 grams, 4.2 ounces of our zero as sugar goes in there. We're continuing with the theme of the powders. So I'm going to be adding in 1 level teaspoon of baking soda. Just make sure there's no lumps in there. Just give it a bit of a push down. You can also put this if you wanted to, just to make sure, put it through a little bit of a sieve as well. So 1 teaspoon level of the baking soda goes in. Baking soda is going to help to give this loaf a really nice color, and it also acts as a raising agent. But just to make sure we get a little bit of lightness there, I'm also putting in a teaspoon of baking powder. So we've got those two in there. We need to combine everything and to bring everything together. So a bit of xanthan gum. You could also use gum as well, which is another type of thickening product. And definitely something that you need for gluten-free baking. So 3/4 teaspoon of our xanthan or gum goes in there as well. Bit of flavor, I have my vanilla powder here. If you don't have vanilla powder, you can also use a pure vanilla extract. I'm adding in 1 teaspoon of vanilla powder. And you could also add, 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract is going in there. Let's balance it out now. We're balancing it out with a little bit of mineral salt. So about 1/2 teaspoon of mineral salt goes in there as well. And I'm just making sure I've got all the dry ingredients. I think I have. So just give it a bit of a stir, a bit of a mix through. And as I was saying, because there is no gluten in our gluten-free baking, there is very little opportunity of you over beating or over mixing and making this particular bread tough, or this loaf tough. It is wonderfully tender, wonderfully soft. All right, so give that a bit of a bend. Off to the side it goes. Let's consider the next step, which is getting together all our wet ingredients. So in here I have 50 grams of melted coconut oil, and because it's so cold in Sydney today, it took ages for me to melt my coconut oil. You could also use olive oil if you want to, extra virgin olive oil, and my coconut oil of course is extra virgin. So you're going to go 50 grams melted but not hot, so allow it to cool. And the reason we don't want it hot is because we need to add in some eggs, and if this is hot you're going to make scrambled eggs with oil, and doesn't sound too good, does it? So 3 whole eggs are going to go in there, just like this. Another liquid ingredient that we're going to be adding, and we haven't even got to the leading star of the dish yet, which of course is lemons. We won't forget the lemons, that's very important. But we're going to keep on adding some liquid ingredients. So I have some unsweetened coconut milk yogurt, and we want to add in 50 grams, which is 1.7 ounces of our coconut yogurt goes in there. And of course unsweetened, unflavored coconut yogurt. Thank you very much. We're also going to add a little bit of fiber syrup. Our sweet as fiber syrup is going to go in there. And the reason I'm adding fiber syrup is I want to obviously give it just that little bit of a different type of sweetener, because this kind of tastes like candy floss or fairy floss. We're now adding fiber to it. We're adding a prebiotic fiber, which is really good for us. But also the fiber syrup and the syrup quality does help to make this loaf, or to keep this loaf very, very moist. So that's why I'm adding fiber syrup in there. And then we cannot forget the leading star of today's little cooking class, of course, is our lemon juice. So this is freshly squeezed lemon juice. I have in here 120 ml, so 4.2 fluid ounces of lemon juice. And yes, it is freshly squeezed. I literally squeezed it before we went live. not the stuff that you buy in those, looks like a little plastic lemon container. That's not gonna cut it when it comes to this. It has to be fresh lemon juice, otherwise it's gonna be a real nasty tasting loaf. So we're gonna add in our lemon juice in there, but we haven't finished. My goodness, we're gonna continue to give this a wonderful flavor. And the way that we're gonna do that is we're also gonna add in some lemon zest. So lemon zest is, it's where under the skin, just under the skin is where all those volatile oils live. And so if you have a nice fine grater, I've got a nice fine little microplane here, and so I'm getting really, really thin bits of zest, this is really gonna help to boost the flavor of our lemon loaf as well. So I'm only going to be zesting one lemon today, because if I put too much in, it could get a little bit bitter. So remember, those oils that live just underneath the skin, they are known as volatile oils, and they are pretty full on. So we don't want to add too much lemon zest. This is kind of a medium-sized lemon, so the zest of a medium-sized lemon. But at the same time, if you don't add enough in, it will be a little bit flat in terms of the taste of your loaf. So we're going to go for the zest. Look at that, gorgeous, isn't it? The zest of finely grated zest of one medium-sized lemon is going to go in there as well. Wonderful. I am going to be keeping that because I'm going to be using that lemon, or the juice of that lemon, in the icing as well that goes on top of this. So I will be keeping that. But this is kind of our liquid ingredients done. So just get in there with a bit of a whisk and just mix it all together. It will look a little bit funky because of the coconut yogurt. Don't worry about that. It'll all come together very, very nicely once we combine it with our dry. So that's all we're doing. Dry in one bowl, wet stuff in another bowl, and then I'm going to take my big spoon and just incorporate the two together. See, this is easy. I love these types of recipes. They are easy. There's not too much thinking involved, which is always really, really nice. Just give it a bit of a stir. And as I was saying, at this point in time, you don't even have to worry about over mixing, because there's no gluten to worry about it getting really, really thick. So you're doing a bit of that. Grab yourself up a lined loaf tin, about that size loaf tin. And I've lined it with a bit of non-stick baking paper, of course, so it doesn't stick to the pan. Now, by the way, my oven is currently set at 170 degrees Celsius, which is 320 degrees Fahrenheit. So pouring that in, don't want to waste it. And yes, you can lick the bowl. It's yum. I've tried it. It's pretty good. I was like, I'm not sure about licking the bowl this time around. I was like, oh, that's actually really, really good. So lick the bowl, don't waste it, please don't waste it. Or do what my kids still really dislike me doing, if I've got one, here it is using your plastic spatula or your plastic scraper to make sure you do not waste any of the goodness. Everything goes in. I purposely don't do this sometimes, just in case someone wants to lick the bowl. It was my favourite thing to do as a kid, licking the bowl. Absolutely loved it. In fact, sometimes I would just bake so I could lick the bowl. I'm not sure if anyone else used to do that as well, but I often did that. Alright, so we have our loaf. We have our oven set at 170 degrees Celsius, 320 degrees Fahrenheit. The next thing you want to think about doing is taking up a piece of foil and just lay it over the top. If your loaf comes up higher than mine's about 3/4, so there's room to rise. If your loaf, your mixture comes up a little bit higher in your tin, then when you add your foil, don't press it down. Leave some room for your loaf to expand a little, to rise a little as it's baking. But the reason why we're doing foil this time round is because we don't want it to get too dark too quickly. So once you've got your foil on, you then take your loaf like that. See, it's kind of light. It's not, I haven't like really snugly put it on. It's just to stop it from browning too much. Once you're at the stage, pop it into your oven, set your timer for 35 minutes, yeah? Middle of the oven, shelf in the middle of the oven, 35 minutes. Once the 35 minutes is up, you then remove the foil, it'll be nice and big, but it won't have much colour. So this is the opportunity now for your loaf to colour. After 35 minutes, the foil comes off, and then you continue to bake your loaf for 25 minutes or until a skewer inserted into the middle comes out clean. So your total baking time is going to be 60 minutes, 35 with foil, 25 without, and then your loaf should be ready. But you know, the other way to tell, get that skewer out, poke it in the middle. If it comes out clean, you know your loaf's ready. So once your loaf is done, just leave it in the loaf tin for 10 to 20 minutes to cool down on a wire rack, and then take your baking paper, lift it out, and allow the loaf to cool completely in the tin, completely on the wire rack before you ice it. Now you don't have to ice it. There's the thing, icing is up to you. You could literally just have, here's one I prepared earlier. You could literally just have your lemon loaf. Look at it, it's gorgeous. You could have your lemon loaf with some, with just big slices, and have it with a cup of tea. Unbelievably good. Trust, take Mahei's word for it. He ate 3/4 of a loaf yesterday, but it was a good loaf, wasn't it, my love? It was healthy. Okay, I helped him a little bit. So you can just eat it like that. Cut off, lovely big slices, and you get to eat it like that. But you can also toast it. You can also put a little bit of grass-fed butter onto it as well, and have it like a, like a tea loaf. But the other thing that you can think about doing is you can make a bit of an icing to go on top of it, so it's a little bit more traditional. So I'm going to show you guys how to make that icing now. And don't you just love my platter? Look at it. Oopsie, nearly lost it. Okay, look at it. Okay, I'll show you. I'll take it off. Look, isn't that gorgeous? Isn't that stunning? That's beautiful. I even have a cup to match. All right, so without dropping your loaf, don't lose your loaf, I'm going to show you guys how to make the icing. Now, icing is 2 ingredients. One of those ingredients is the star of today's cooking class, which of course is wonderful vitamin C enriched lemons, lovely wintry lemons. So we need a bit of lemon juice, which is the first thing. So, and we want to not waste this zested lemon. I've got to tell you that often I will zest a lemon and then put it into the fridge and then forget about it and not actually utilize the juice. This is a wonderful way to make sure that you're using up everything. So we are going to be juicing it. We are going to be extracting all the juice from it. Any leftover juice, if you've got a lot of lemons, and people often ask me, what do I do with all these lemons? Of course, make lemon loaf with lemon icing. Make my lemon slice, which is amazing. It is so incredibly good. Make lemon curd, make lemon meringues, make pickled lemons. There's so many things you can do, but if you're sort of like, I don't want to do any of that, just squeeze the lemon juice, like squeeze your lemons and just make fresh juice, and then freeze them in ice cube trays, and you've always got lemon juice in the freezer. So I'm just going to, oh gosh, look how juicy they are. It makes me so happy. I love it. I do, there's many things about winter I don't particularly approve of, like being cold. I don't like being cold, I have to tell you, but there are many things I do approve of, and one of those things are winter vegetables and winter fruit. It's like, yay, because we go through the rest of the year having these pretty sad lemons that don't even give up any juice, and this lemon is just it's just allowing me to extract so much goodness from here, so much goodness. All right, so squeeze out all the lemon juice. Remember, you can always freeze it if you need to. You don't have to use it all, because we're not going to use all that juice in the icing. Oh my gosh, that would be one seriously lemony icing. So the second ingredient in our icing today is our 0 as sugar, pure erythritol. And I'm going to turn it into basically icing powder. And the way that I'm going to be doing that, or icing sugar, or powder, powdered sugar, without the sugar, of course. And the way that I do that, once again, I'm turning to my best friend, my little Sunbeam coffee and spice grinder. Like, it reminds me of a droid, for anyone who's a bit of a fan of Star Wars, or anything sort of, of that nature. It literally is my droid, and it is my helper in the kitchen. I could not live without it. It is really, really good, because I like to do stuff like this. So I take the 0 sugar, which at this point in time is granulated. So it's, if I was to mix that into the ice, it would just, nothing would happen. You'd just get really sweet lemon water. But we want to create a powder, and the best way to do that, and yes, it is better than trying to do this in a food processor. Unless you have a high-speed commercial food processor, it's going to be very difficult for you to make icing sugar or powdered sugar like substance in that. But in your spice grinder, easy. So in total for this entire loaf, you want about 150 grams of our zero as sugar, pure erythritol, and then you want to grind it. And ta-da! Look, can you see the? Look at that! You can, oh, get it on my white top, on my black top. You can see how it's now a powder. Literally, just like that, you've made your own healthy icing sugar. Just like that. With this you can see why this begins to save you so much money when you begin to grind things yourself. It is brilliant. So here is a little bit I prepared earlier to bring me up to that 150 gram mark, and just give it a good tap just to get it out. Sometimes you got to tap it on the bench. Thank you, Droid. You have done very good today. Congratulations. Okay, so we've got all this this wonderful powdered icing sugar. That's not sugar. It's not sugar. Now we're going to start to add in some of our lemon juice, and I'm going to do it slowly, because if I was to dump it all in, it may be too much and it becomes too watery. So the best rule of thumb here is to do it tablespoon by tablespoon. So I'm going to start with 4 tablespoons, and then I'm going to give it a bit of a mix. Because one of the things when you are making icing, and for anyone who's made icing before, you know, to begin with it's like, ugh, this is really thick. And then you just add like 1 mil of water too much, and it literally becomes like icing soup. So hence why, well, look at that, you've almost got, looks like royal icing, like fondant, doesn't it? It's so wonderful. And of course, it's just 2 ingredients, perfect. So we're gonna add another tablespoon, so that's 5 now that I've got in there. 5 tablespoons, and once again, we are getting it coming together, but I wanna make it a little bit thinner than that. That's still very paste-like. So add, shall I add? No, I'm going to add one at a time. See, I nearly did exactly what I was telling you guys not to do, which is don't get too confident when you add in your liquid, because it doesn't take much, and then boom, you've got a really thin icing. But you know, it's coming along really, really good. Maybe just half a tablespoon more. So what was that, 5.5 in total? Was that 6.5? You just work it as you need to work it. All right, so happy with that. It's of a consistency that is not too thick. Oh, this is so satisfying. Look at that. This is so satisfying. And as I was saying, you don't have to, this lemon loaf is so yum, you don't have to add any icing if you don't want to. You can literally have it on its own. But how good is icing? It's pretty good. Hey, where's my spatula? I need a spatula. Oh, look at that. Here we go. Okay, so put that there so you guys can see, and then have fun. This is the funnest part of this whole entire process, and it's the most satisfying. Like, I could watch this for hours, icing going onto things, because it's kind of, oh, it's very mesmerizing. So give it a bit of a spread out. You know, I have given you enough of, in this icing recipe, to be a thick bit of icing on top of your loaf. And I'm kind of going with that Madeira cake-like quality, which has got that really thick bit of icing on top. But of course, you can always half the recipe for the icing. If you prefer just a very thin drizzle, then by all means, go with sort of, you know, 75 grams of the zero as sugar, and maybe 3 to 4 tablespoons of the lemon juice to get a icing that you approve of. I approve of that icing, by the way. Let's cut into it. Let's see what's happening in here. Very nice. So I made this tea loaf last night. I baked it last night. And it definitely, I mean, I prefer it straight on the day that you bake it. I do prefer that, but in saying that, it is still wonderful and lovely and moist the next day as well. So definitely go for thick slices. I'm just going to pop that one to the side. I want to really show you guys what's going on in here. Okay, are you ready? Oh, the big reveal. Oh, sticky fingers. Can you see how lovely and moist that is? It is a dense loaf, but it is so incredibly moist and delicious and exciting that we can have something like this that has no gluten and no sugar and no grain and no dairy. My goodness. And of course, one of the greatest parts about it is you're using up those winter lemons, those, and it's always best to eat in season, because when you eat fruit and vegetables that are in season, they have the most available nutrient content. So it's not being flown in from somewhere where this particular product is not currently in season, which makes it so amazingly marvelous. So get to your supermarket if you haven't already got lemons somewhere in the house, and absolutely, oh, here we go, I'll put it back on here so you can see. Absolutely give my lemon loaf a bit of a try. Oh, there you go, because it's absolutely worth it. And let me know what you think. I will be sharing this recipe with you guys tomorrow on Bridget's Healthy Kitchen. If you'd like your own copy of the PDF sent to you, then keep an eye out tomorrow on Bridget's Healthy Kitchen. We'll be sharing it for you to request. All right, guys, I will definitely be seeing you all very, very soon. And I look forward to spending more time with you back here in the kitchen. Bye.